MOHANAD ABDELWAHAB's brother Saleh left home in Khartoum 10 days ago and never came back. He joined anti-government protests in Sudan's second largest city, Durman.
We didn't realize he was shot while we were protesting. Security forces were coming at us and we ran for a bit, and he said he couldn't feel his arm. He thought he twisted his arm. Then we learned he sustained a bullet wound. We hid in a house and tried to give him first aid. That's when we noticed that he was also shot in the back. When we were able to get to the hospital, he was weak and passed away an hour later.
3 protesters were killed that day. Human rights activists say at least 50 have lost their lives in the month-long protests demanding the resignation of President Omar al-Bashir. The government total is much lower. Protests started when the government announced a rise in the price of bread. The outcry spread to other towns and cities nationwide. Police have repeatedly fired bullets and tear gas to disperse crowds. Hospitals and doctors have been attacked by security forces for treating protesters. Demands to end Bashir's 30-year rule can be heard in every protest march. It's been 1 month since people started protesting to demand change. People have been expressing their frustration at the way President Omar al-Bashir has been running the country for the past 30 years. Despite the use of live ammunition and tear gas, the protest seems to be gathering strength. And for weeks on, the president remains defiant. President Bashir describes protesters as traitors, influenced by foreign agents. After criticism by the EU and the UN of attacks on unarmed protesters, Sudan's government lawyer is promising to investigate.
We will be looking into the death that occurred during the protests and urge people who have information to come forward and present it to us so we can conclude what happened and how people have been killed. We'll also look into those injured and those who had their properties destroyed in the demonstrations.
Bashir remains wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity in the western region of Darfur. Some analysts say the biggest challenge he's yet faced at home has the potential to end his rule.
This movement will be successful in changing the regime. It's true that the government doesn't see that, but it can happen. That can happen through a new political party taking over, or the ruling party sidestepping Bashir and bringing someone else in his place. But one thing we can be sure of is that Sudan before the 19th of December is not the same Sudan post 19th of December when the protests started.
Bashir has promised economic reforms, but as protests continue into a second month, some Sudanese say they're ready to sacrifice their lives to see change. Changes which President Bashir doesn't appear ready to make. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.